Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another UFC fight prediction video. In this video, I'll be predicting the full card of fights for UFC Fight Night, Reyes versus Prochazka. So without further ado, let's get to our first fight on the card. So in our first fight, we have in the featherweight division, Luke Saunders versus Felipe Colares. And how I see this one right here is, I look at it, really starts me off with Saunders with 4 losses. I think all in the UFC. 3 of them have been by submission. Yes, they've been for different reasons and different paths to those submission losses. Like I think one he was dominating, then he got caught like by submission when the fight was on the ground off his back. Well, he was on his back. His opponent was on his back. Other one, his last fight, Nate Maness, he got rocked and then got it submitted. But he was doing good in that fight too. In the fight there, he got lost to submission. Third fight was a fight lost to Yahya when Yahya just pretty much disrespected his submission defense and his grappling, just went for the takedown and went for submission without little regard for anything Saunders had to bring back or defend, and was able to get that submission I think in under 2 minutes. So got him in and out of there real quick. No respect for his grappling. Now Felipe Colares in this one, his resume doesn't look the most impressive either, but you gotta look at the competition he fought. Like Freitas, even though I'm not saying I don't think Freitas is definitely. I don't think Freitas necessarily is gonna become a top talent in this division, or he definitely can be. But I look to Montel Jackson. That's a fight where people kind of really not really leaning to Colares as much because of how bad Montel Jackson beat him. And really his striking has not looked super great in any of his fights. But Montel Jackson's fight, he got outlanded by like 82 significant strikes to 16 or something, or 13. So that's why people aren't leaning him. But one thing I will say about him, he only has 2 losses. He's younger by like 9 years, like 3 inches taller, 3-inch longer reach. Got a high-level submission game, and against most of Saunders' losses have come by submission. He's young, he's tough, and like yes, he got outlanded by like 82 significant strikes to 13. But in all these fights where he had these tough outs, he got a takedown. He was in the fight. He was competitive. He was threatening with submissions, and they were against pretty much stellar guys. Definitely Montel Jackson. That's a future title contender, if not champion in this weight class. So really no disrespect there for him. He just down the level, and Saunders would probably get stopped by Montel Jackson. But again, I just think Saunders is a well-rounded fighter, but he definitely is a jack of all trades and not stellar in any area. He will definitely be the better striker in this one. But I feel like Colares will be relentless with his wrestling, or relentless with his takedowns and his grappling. Be the bigger man, longer man, younger man. Saunders might be a bit stronger, but Colares is going to be the tougher man as we've seen in these fights and be able to withstand damage and be able to take it through a fight. Like I said, Montel Jackson was throwing the kitchen sink at him, but he was still threatening with submission, still making it interesting. So I think against Saunders, he will be more aggressive. He'll initiate the clinch more and try to go for the takedowns and tackle submissions. Then eventually break him down with his pressure and pace and be able to tap him out in the second round. So in this one, I have Felipe Colares via second round submission. Now to our next fight, we have in the middleweight division, KB Buhar versus Andreas Michailidis. And I see this one right here. So Buhar is, I think, 6'3" or 6'4". Michailidis is 6 feet tall, so a good height advantage on Buhar's side. He seems to have some decent fundamentals, decent know-how. Don't move his head the best. And we saw in this fight with Tom Breeze, I don't think his chin is all the best or his heart is all the best, but we have not seen much from him. He's still a young guy, but to be stopped by a jab, you got to be kind of questionable. You can't really respect him too much, and the level of competition he fought has not been the highest. But a young guy. And yeah, but I'm not really saying it's kind of a fighter that doesn't really have any standout skill. I think that's not even a thing. Michailidis has definitely fought much better competition. He doesn't have the longest record either, but his competition has been much stiffer. And he has beaten a lot of good competition, beaten good wrestlers, beaten good strikers. Buhar has really beaten no one. Just 8 wins, almost irrelevant wins, and then 1 loss when he stepped up in competition. Michailidis came in, looked good against his opponent Dukakis, but then was caught with some elbows going for a takedown on a fight that he was leading in. So in this one, I really just get to the point of this one. I think Michailidis is the better striker. I feel like Buhar, if he can stick to the fundamentals and be clean, he definitely has the opportunity, being a longer man. If he can use that clinch, he definitely has some opportunities. But again, a man who stopped by a jab, really can't lean to him, respect him too much. I got to see a lot more from him to redeem him from that loss if I can really pick him, unless he's just fighting a guy that he just has such a style matchup over, or he just has a skill advantage over. And he doesn't. He doesn't have experience over him. He doesn't have skill over him. I think Michailidis is a much better striker. I think much more proven striker is a better way to say it. Definitely hits harder, definitely packs more punch, definitely versatile with his kicks. And also he got a well-rounded skill set. He's not just a a striker. He has some decent wrestling as well. We see him against Ion Pascu, who's a pretty solid, respectable wrestler, and he was able to get takedowns on him and get positions on him. So Micheladas is no slouch in grappling either, and I think whether he mixes it up or not, this is his fight, and I think he'll stop him in the second round, mixing up with spinning back kicks, spinning head kicks, overhands, takedowns, and really probably catch him with spinning back kick to the body, or then catch him overhand, drop him, and then finish him off in that second round via TKO on the ground with ground and pound. So in this one, I have Andreas Micheladas via second round TKO. Now to our next fight, we have in the flyweight, or the women's strawweight division, Sam Hughes versus Loma Lookboonmee. And how I see this one right here is Sam Hughes, I'm hearing that she has a D1 wrestling background, but really when you look at D1 wrestling as far as women, it's real respectable as far as men. But women, I think most women that are, standout-ish or good, solid wrestlers are, well, all of them are solid wrestlers, they're in D1 or whatnot. But, the true cream of the crop, I don't really hear about them going to D1. They kind of just go straight to the worlds and, the Olympics and the national, not national, but the international scene. So I haven't heard much about Sam Hughes on the international scene. I haven't. So, and even look at her fights for wrestling, doesn't look all that stellar. That's all I'm saying. Like, it looks pretty bland, pretty average. Striking look average. Everything about her look average. Whereas Loma Lookboonmee is, without a doubt, a world-class striker. Skills held up, and those skills pay the bills. Sam Hughes will have some size, and if that wrestling can play a fact, she can be a solid underdog bet, but I'm just not going to lean to her. Especially after her first fight, she just quit just to Tecia Torres is being that much better that she just broke her like that. I feel like Loma Lookboonmee got some good hips, definitely coming from that Muay Thai background, definitely working on her takedown defense. Maybe, like I said, a couple of fights ago, but she's a young fighter who's making big and huge leaps and improvements in her skill set. So I feel like she'll be able to address the wrestling Hughes if she tries to. And then from there, use her clinch and bully her around, land elbows, land knees, even probably score some trips, and just really bust her up. And I see her putting her out of there in the first round. So in this one, I have Loma Lookboonmee via first round TKO. Now to our next fight, we have in the featherweight division, Kai Kamaka III versus TJ Brown. And how I see this one right here. So TJ Brown, iffy striking, but definitely got hard and definitely could push a pace. And that's what you got to worry about Kai Kamaka. Also, TJ Brown does have some decent wrestling, but his wrestling only look good against a true, well, not even true one. I'm not going to say that, but his wrestling only really looked stellar in one fight, and that was against Griffin. And sometimes Griffin's defensive grappling can be a little bit iffy, but I'm not going to dispute TJ Brown's wrestling skill. But also, you got to recognize Kai Kamaka III has a solid wrestling background as well. His wrestling is pretty solid. It's just his cardio. So I don't see him having any issues with I don't see him having any real issues with TJ Brown's wrestling until maybe this mid part second round or that third round, like mid part second, third round. That could make it interesting. But I feel like he definitely stuffed those takedowns TJ Brown early. Then on feet striking wise, I feel like he can really exploit TJ Brown, rip him to the body, rip him up top, and just find all types of openings. And I really think he's clearly the better striker by a good portion on the feet, and stuff the takedowns, or TJ Brown maybe score his own takedown. And I see him really putting TJ Brown out of this. I don't see him taking to decision. I see him put him out. And I think it's going to be in the second round. So in this one, I got Kai Kamaka III via second round TKO. Now to our next fight, we have in the featherweight division, Gabriel Benitez versus Jonathan Pierce. So this is a fight where I'm going to go with the dog in this one. I feel like Gabriel Benitez, we kind of forgot about his wrestling or his lack of wrestling. I feel like he's made improvements there, but no one has really took him there again since Enrique Barzola or even Clay Collard. Clay Collard, they would get like 6 takedowns on him. That's not really something you can even be proud of. That's kind of like, that's very questionable to get taken down by Clay Collard that many times. No disrespect to Clay Collard, but he's not an exceptional wrestler in my opinion, or anyone's opinion really. And then Enrique Barzola, I think, took him down 9 times. So that's like the second most times he took down anyone. And really since then, I think the only guy that probably tried to take him down was Jason Knight. And Jason Knight is just not a exceptional wrestler at all. He has had his moments, but he's not an exceptional wrestler. But he did shut him down, I think, with like pretty much more than half the takedowns that Jason Knight went for. I think he only got 1 out of the 7 takedowns he went for, or 1 of the 8. But that showed improvements, but he hasn't been in there. I think Jonathan Pierce is a much better wrestler than Jason Knight, than Clay Collard, but not Enrique Barzola. And he's bigger, coming down from the 155 division, and he's put on a pretty good frame. He's strong. He's big for the weight class now. Whereas at 155, he was a decent sized 155er, but now he's an even bigger 145er, and he has no cardio issues. His striking is not as bad as people try to make it, or his skills aren't as bad as people try to make it. He has a solid skill set. Now it's favoring him even better at 145, and I feel like at 145 he's going to threaten with the takedowns. I don't feel like the gap between their striking is that big. He might have, I feel like, step in range too much, which can allow Benitez to land some power. But I feel like when he step in range, he's going to use that time to set up takedowns and really get up under Benitez, really work on him and really drain him with the takedown attempts and the takedowns, the control against the cage, control on the ground, and really wear down Benitez and allow him to really get settled with his striking and just really outgrind him and put the wrestling on him, where Benitez has not really had to deal with that inside the octagon for quite some time now. And the last time he did it, he did not, well, the last time he fought somebody that actually can really enforce that on him, he did not fare the best at all. So in this one, I have Jonathan Pearce by decision. Now on to our next fight. We have in the women's strawweight division, Randa Markos versus Luana Pinheiro. Now I see this one right here. So Randa Markos is like on a 2 or 3 fight losing streak. She's been up and down, more down than up, it seems, especially at this point. She got an overhand, got some takedowns, some interesting submission skills, or interesting grappling skills, I will say. She's an interesting fighter. But you're going to get Luana Pinheiro. I think this is definitely an opportunity for, it's like a 50-50 fight just on paper, because Pinheiro has not really fought the best competition. We have not really seen somebody aggressively go for the takedown on her, aggressively press her. And like I said, Markos does have an opportunity, but a fighter that's older, I think she's like 35 or 36, hasn't really shown any real true evolution in her skill set. Going against Pinheiro, who I think is the more polished striker. Like I said, Markos has 1-2, and she can be effective with that, and surprisingly has fought some really good strikers and, been able to hold her own to an extent with the overhand and go for an aggressive takedown attempt. And, been able to do that. In her last fight, I think she did fight a wrestler who was a higher caliber wrestler. She got stylistically shut out because all she can't really do is go for takedown, and you get better wrestler. And her submission skills off her back aren't anything to write home about. So it is the case where she couldn't enforce her game. Then McDurn fight, but the Dern fight, she needed to take it to the ground, so she took it to the ground literally against probably the best submission grappler in the division and got submitted. So Elias' fight was a stylistic matchup that why she lost. But Pinheiro could be a similar case, but Pinheiro is definitely not no Mackenzie Dern submission game. Her wrestling definitely not as good as her last opponent that Markos fought. But again, she's a more technical striker between the two. Her stance is a little bit longer. And she has a judo background, which I like in this one, especially against Markos going for the takedown. She can maybe reverse some of those takedowns in this fight on the outside, counter Markos. But again, I'm going to lean to this being a tight matchup, and really lean on momentum and lean on the fact that Pinheiro is still evolving. I feel like the grappling could potentially neutralize, and Pinheiro will have the striking advantage. And I see this is a very close fight, but Pinheiro winning the decision. So in this one, I have Luana Pinheiro by decision. Now to our next fight, we have in the first fight on our main card, in the women's flyweight division, Poliana Botelho versus Luana Carolina. So this one, Carolina, she got some nice straight punches, but she's very basic. Her grappling, both their grapplings are nothing to write home about, and they're lucky that they're not fighting a cardio wrestler or a cardio grappler or top-notch grappler, because it would be another loss on their record. But they're facing each other who both have issues with grapplers. Luana Carolina, pretty basic, but straight down the pipe stuff. Not a lot of pop, not a lot of power, or consistent power, but good fundamentals. But I feel like Poliana Botelho, a little more technical, can mix a little bit more, and she has more power, more aggression. And that's going to be what's going to win her. So it's going to be a striking matchup. And you can look at Poliana Botelho and say, oh, maybe why is it not a stoppage? But Botelho, I think, only has one stoppage inside the UFC. And she doesn't have the most stoppages in her career. So she's not really a consistent, known knockout artist. And now she's going against another striker and not a iffy grappler or something. She's going against a striker. So I just see this one playing out by decision. Pretty competitive matchup, but Botelho landing more shots, being more aggressive, and landing with more power, and that getting her the decision in this one. So in this one, I have Poliana Botelho by decision. Now to our next fight, we have in the bantamweight division, Merab Dvalishvili versus Cody Stamann. And I see this one right here. So first off with this one, both solid wrestlers, both solid fighters. But with Cody Stamann, I think when he goes against wrestlers or grapplers, he allows for it to play out in a way. He doesn't really fight defensively with his wrestling. He'll embrace the wrestling match, as he did with Sterling, as he did with Brian Caraway, and I think there was another fight too in there where when he fought against the grappler, he mixed in the grappler. The only one he didn't really mix it up with Brian Kelleher, because I don't know, he did kind of mix it up with Brian Kelleher, but he more so kept that a striking matchup. I guess Brian Kelleher is more of a submission artist than a wrestler to him, so he really didn't want to mess around with that too much. But when he goes against wrestlers, he allows a wrestling match. So the Sterling fight was a wrestling match, Caraway was a wrestling match, and I'm pretty sure again there was other one, but that really sticks out to me. In the Caraway fight, Caraway lost because Caraway just couldn't maintain that pace. Like Caraway came out dominating Stamann in the wrestling, and eventually Stamann just simply outlasted him and then started to get the better of Caraway. But going against Dvalishvili wrestling, cardio, and pace, and takedowns and relentlessness is top notch. I don't think there's anyone in the sport right now who's more relentless with their wrestling. You could say Khabib, but Khabib gets takedowns, he scores, and he's more just allow you to make mistakes. Dvalishvili will shoot a takedown, get stuffed, shoot another takedown, get stuffed, shoot a takedown, somebody hit a wizard, get back standing, shoot a takedown, somebody pop back up, and like, he just relentless. Like, usually people only have certain things. Like, even Khabib, if somebody was throwing on Khabib would be like, let me just go back to strike for a second. Let me take a round off. But Dvalishvili, there is no stoppage with him. He just keeps going and going and going, and like the Energizer Bunny with his wrestling. So at this moment in his career, this guy, there's no one I would say at the point can wrestle in as much as Dvalishvili in the sport at the moment. And again, that wrestling cardio is phenomenal. Striking, nothing really crazy to write home about, but making improvements. I would lean it to Stamann striking. So if he did try to go the sprawl and brawl style and use his wrestling in defense, it would be a more interesting matchup. I think he might at some point when he's kind of down on a round or two. But early on, I think it's going to allow he's going to fall into Dvalishvili's wrestling. Especially, it's hard not to fall into Dvalishvili's wrestling game, especially when he's that much on you. Like, most you can do when somebody's going for a takedown is maybe try to intercept them with a punch or a knee, or try to defend a takedown. But again, Dvalishvili's going to be up underneath him the whole time, trying to enforce that wrestling, pressuring, and trying to get that takedowns. But I see it as a competitive matchup. But again, I don't feel like Cody Stamann is going to, even if he does try to go to defensive wrestling style and then strike, I just think Dvalishvili's pace and wrestling, and just the fact that he's going to be pressuring and putting that wrestling on Cody Stamann, is going to just force it to be still a grappling heavy fight, even if Stamann is not trying to entertain it as much. And I think it's a fight that's going to stylistically favor Dvalishvili and see him getting a decision victory in this one. So in this one, I have Merab Dvalishvili by decision. Now on to our next fight, we have in the 185-pound division, the middleweight division, Sean Strickland versus Krzysztof Jotko. And how I see this one right here is I think Sean Strickland is a much cleaner boxer. I think Jotko has better kicks. I think Strickland's the better wrestler. I think Jotko he's more aggressive with his takedowns and has been more successful with his takedowns, at least in the UFC. Got a lot of good trips and singles and setups to his takedowns. Might not be the highest level of wrestling, but he can mix it in there with his striking and mixing in there with the situational. Like, he's a situational wrestler, I would say. You can put him in a traditional wrestling, probably get dominated by just about anybody, probably even high school level wrestlers. Like, now I'm probably exaggerating, but not really. But probably get dominated by, or probably get beat by, not the highest levels of wrestler. His wrestling not that super high, but again, it's MMA wrestling and situational wrestling. He understands his ranges, understands his timing, and could even get takedowns over some people that probably would dominate him in actual wrestling. But again, a guy that a good situational and timing wrestler for MMA. But I feel against Strickland, I don't see him having too much great success with the wrestling or in the clinch. And I think on the feet, his best attempt is to take away the leg of Strickland and then fire stuff over top of his boxing, but over top of his jabs and straight shots. But what I see this one really happen down, I think I see Strickland, and also I'm saying I don't think this fight gets stopped. It ends in a stoppage because Strickland has really been an inconsistent knockout artist, and Jotko, I ain't only been finished as far as in the UFC. Well, he's been finished twice, but I just don't see it as a knockout, and it's one of the things will be a technical chess match. Jotko's kicks and trying to take away the lead leg and take away the base of Strickland, and Strickland just trying to counter and intercept Jotko's kicks, intercept his punches, like his looping overhand shots and wide shots, and try to fire down the pipe, intercept his shots, walk him down, pepper him with the jab, and follow behind that jab with his power shots. But again, I see it's a close matchup, but I think Strickland will be able to find Jotko's timing, will be able to stuff his situational takedowns, maybe score a takedown of his own in there, but really just being able to beat Jotko to the strike, find his timing, be cleaner, be short on his shots, and I see him beating Jocko to a decision. So in this one, I have Sean Strickland by decision. Now on to our next fight, we have in the light heavyweight division, Ion Cutelaba versus Dustin Jacoby. And I see this one, and I really don't rate Cutelaba's wrestling all that high, even though he's supposed to be this Greco-Roman and all this wrestling in his country. I don't really rate his wrestling all that high. It's pretty decent at best. Nothing stellar or exceptional in the division. And I'm not saying you need that to beat Jacoby with your wrestling, but I don't feel like he mixes in all that well. And I feel like Jacoby has been in there with better wrestlers, and he definitely training to mix that, like to defend that, because really I don't think Cutelaba bring much to Jacoby on the feet at all. His striking has been pretty sloppy for the most part. Takedowns has been pretty sloppy for the most part. He's just an aggressive fighter with some decent skills and background. But if he could show something more, then it is what it is. But from what I've seen, outside of very few instances, he's just kind of a fighter that relies on aggression. He'll mix in takedowns every now and then. And yes, his takedown offense look good, and ground and pound look good against maybe two fighters again look good against. But one of those fighters no longer in the UFC. Not saying he's a bad fighter, but he's not in the UFC no more. And Khalil Roundtree, who has always had pretty, for the most part, outside of maybe one or two fights, has always had horrendous takedown defense, horrendous fight IQ. So really, the few instances he has of looking any bit decent were against fighters who don't look the best or have horrendous responses to what he put upon them. But Jacoby, I can see him stuffing the takedowns of Cutelaba, battering that leg up. Even if Cutelaba gets on a leg from him, like catches a leg kick, I feel like Jacoby can just hit a wizard, and free his leg. Or if he does get taken, could just use the cage, stand right back up, and get back to just picking apart Cutelaba on the feet. That's why I just really see. I think Jacoby's on a much different level of striking, and Cutelaba is just open for everything. Leg kicks, body kicks, head kicks. I just see Jacoby, and even the clinch, knees to the body, that's really battering him on the feet. And I see him put him away in that third round. So in this one, I have Dustin Jacoby by third round TKO. Now on to our next fight, we have in our co-main event, Cub Swanson versus Giga Chikadze in the featherweight division. And how I see this one right here, I think Cub Swanson's a savvy veteran. He could definitely bring a lot to this fight. But I would say Giga Chikadze is the better striker. And Cub Swanson doesn't initiate takedowns as much. And you can look at all his what almost 40 plus fights, almost 40 fight career, damn near 40 fight career. And I think the most takedowns he ever got in a fight was like 2 takedowns. So even though he has a high level of grappling and a high level of skill, he doesn't really look to take the ground. He more so prefers to strike. And typically when he goes against better grappling, he doesn't fare the best, except when against Kron Gracie and maybe a couple other ones. So it just is what it is. So I see this really playing out in the striking game, because Cub Swanson, I'm not gonna really train to do anything different, and not even gonna try to do anything different. He's gonna try to box, try to strike with Giga Chikadze, try to mix in his own kicks and be that creative destruction that he is. We're going against Giga Chikadze, the feather fight. I mean, the decorated kickbox, the decorated striker, the longer fighter, the younger fighter. I think it was like 6 feet versus 5'8", 4-inch. So yeah, the longer, younger fighter, the more technical striker. I just think Giga Chikadze is gonna do his typical style or play it smart. Even though he's talking about finishes in this, I don't see he's going into a finish. Cub Swanson's a veteran. Chikadze is a beast and all, but he only has one finish inside the UFC. And it was against a late notice, a fighter who just was not ready to fight him, or never will be ready. It was really almost tailor-made for him to stop, put in there to stop on short notice. So when he fought anyone else, I don't think it hasn't even really been close to a stoppage inside the UFC. So I don't even see any different against Cub Swanson. What I see is Giga Chikadze fight on the outside, using his kicks to attack the leg of Cub Swanson, switch it to the body, switch it up top, load up his hands so he can't generate any really power with his overhands or anything. Don't put himself in range for, the counter shots, the slick box from Cub Swanson, and keep Swanson almost at kicking range, where Cub Swanson no slouch in kicking either, but Giga Chikadze is a world-class, world champion in kicking. So, I mean, kickboxing more than kicking, but I'm just saying, like, as far as pure kicks, his kicks are on a different level. His setups, his timings, his range, and all that stuff with his kicks are much better than Swanson. So, and especially with the length he'll have, fight on the outside, be a sniper. Does he get a stop? I don't see so, but I do see him really trying to shut off Swanson's best ranges, like keep him at distance, teeps, leg kicks, so he can't plant, load up his overhand, load up his power hand, and then time his own jab, time his jab to stutter Swanson jab, and just really use his range. Maybe at times mix it up and go for the kill, but for the most part, fighting at his sniper distance and not allowing Swanson to really get to his best ranges. So in this one, I have Giga Chikadze by decision. Now to our main event. We have in the light heavyweight division, Dominick Reyes versus Jiri Prochazka. So how is this right here? Both tall guys. Reyes is sometimes listed at 6'5", sometimes listed at 6'4". Prochazka sometimes listed at 6'3", sometimes listed at 6'4". But however you cut it, a 1-inch height advantage for Reyes. Prochazka has a 3-year youth advantage, a 3-year reach advantage, and more than twice as many pro fights is Reyes, and has definitely had more high-level profile fights than Reyes has had. Because Prochazka has been in the Rizin tournaments, 2 Rizin tournaments, the other one has been a champion in other leagues, and came into the UFC as the Rizin champion. So more than twice as much experience with like 14 to 30, 31 fights. So more than twice as much fights on Prochazka's side. He's younger, more experienced, longer reach, but Reyes is taller. And Reyes has more UFC experience. So they have their own experience, but I definitely think Prochazka this period has more experience. But I see the one right here. I feel like Prochazka could definitely have a style that could not mirror Blachowicz, but can have some similar success to what Blachowicz had. He definitely doesn't have the same power in his kicks to the body, at least, that Blachowicz has. And I feel like Reyes is going to be learning a lot from that fight. But again, not that same power. And his kicks are punches. Definitely a lot more versatile with his punches than and with his kicks than Blachowicz. Blachowicz really, he can switch up top, but he hasn't really been a prolific head kicker. Whereas Prochazka sets it up and sneaks it in a lot better with his kicks, and can be pretty patient at times. As wild as his style is, his kicks and like his setup with his setups with his kicks are very patient outside of it, everything else he does. But we get more to the point of how do these people match up? How do these two match up? And Prochazka is a pretty aggressive striker, leans over with his head a lot, don't really move his body too much, and which typically is with these guys that with this good head movement or decent head movement. I wouldn't even call him a good head movement fighter. He probably would like that. People would probably like that, me to say that, but I don't think his head movement is all that great. It's not. His body and foot movement, his footwork is decent on the outside, but in boxing range isn't phenomenal either. It isn't stellar. It isn't really much to write home about either. Get tagged a lot, open for a lot of counters at all times. Even by mid to low level fighters, he can be open to counters and has been dropped by some low fighters, but they'll say it was slips, but clearly drops. Both people playing it. This guy just crossed to the striking range or left himself his chin down open in punching range, and somebody just countered him, dropped him, or he just walked into punching range and got dropped and stuff. So he's open for that. And going against Dominick Reyes, who is a pretty good counter puncher. I wouldn't say a world class counter puncher as far as striking, pure striking, but MMA realm, which I think both these guys fall in. I don't think either of these guys are true world class strikers. As far as in the realm of MMA, both world class MMA strikers. I definitely do think Prochazka walks into punching range a lot of times, and even power punching range a lot of times with his chin hanging out. And I know it's to get people to go for his head so he can use his head movement and avoid punches, but it's still there. And if Reyes or anybody really just like attack the body more, especially with like a punch, like a jab to the body or straight to the body, but really it's a jab to the body, which will set up the openings. Because once you jab him to the body, you're going to freeze his body up. His head's already hanging out there. You could jab, short hook him, or you could jab, straight him, jab, cross. It's like he's open for all that stuff once you jab into the body, because his head's already hanging out there. And even without needing to jab to the body, it's there. But the jab just, to jab to the body just increases the chance of landing to the head by a significant percentage. But if Reyes was to do that, he will have great success. But what I really see in this one, I think Prochazka is going to be aggressive coming forward with his shots, having Reyes on the back foot early. But Reyes trying to use his kicks on the outside, tackle the leg of, batter the leg, both legs of Prochazka. And another thing with Prochazka, he does not defend leg kicks the best at all. All right, like he doesn't even really attempt to defend leg kicks. So that's a path for Reyes. Reyes is not a great not a known great power leg kicker at all. But again, what I just see this one, I just think Prochazka is going to be aggressive, and that aggressive is going to lead him to fall into the counters of Reyes. And eventually Reyes is going to start to find his time, start to find shots. Early on, Prochazka is going to, he's going to take him a little bit better, and we kind of brush him off and keep being aggressive. And then momentarily address him and not walk into them, but eventually his style just leads him to fall into counters. And then Reyes is going to be able to walk him into that left straight, everything around that third round. Again, land it flush, drop him, then go on offense, and be able to put him out in that third round. So in this one, I have Dominick Reyes by third round TKO. And that concludes my fight predictions for the full card of fights for UFC Fight Night, Reyes versus Prochazka. And as always, thanks for watching.